Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're still working on Chapter 9 skills. So with transformations, vectors, matrices, and symmetry. Particularly, we're going to be working on performing reflections. There's some main tips that I want to give to you when you're working on reflections. Using a highlighter or a colored pencil really works when you're trying to reflect something over an axis or a certain line. So make sure you have a highlighter or a colored pencil when you're doing this. Let's take a look at this first problem. This first problem asks us to reflect things over the x-axis. And so, like I said, I'm going to take a highlighter and I'm going to highlight that x-axis. Oop, that's a little bit thick. Let's go a little bit thinner. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reflect over this x. And again, if we review, this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at the axis itself and see how far these points are away from the axis. So first of all, let's take a look at n. Okay, n is right here, and if you look at it, it is 1 square away from the axis. And so if I am going to reflect it, I'm going to go 1 away on the other side. I'm going to put an ordered pair, and I'm going to call that n prime. Okay. Now let's go ahead and go to another point. I'm going to look at L. L is 1, 2, 3 blocks or squares away. And so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 away, and I'm going to put L prime. Now you do not need to do the highlighted line here or the highlighted here. This just tells you kind of what, how far that is. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at M. So M is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away from the x-axis. And so if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I end up with M prime. Okay, so that's kind of how you do it. You look at all of the different ordered pairs. Whoops, I didn't mean to take all of that off. You take a look at all the ordered pairs or all of the points. You reflect them over the x-axis, and then when you're done, you're going to draw the lines of the figure in, and then you're going to take and you're going to shade it in. So the final figure that you do is going to be shaded in. And then another thing that I'd like you to do, I not only take a look at the shape itself, but I'm going to look at the ordered pairs. And so I'm going to go ahead and off to the side, I'm going to go L prime. L prime is -3, -3. M prime is going to be -1, comma, I'm sorry, it's +1. +1, comma, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then N prime is going to be +6, comma, -1. And so this ends up being the answer that I'm going to look at, but I'm also going to be taking a look at the figure. Okay, so that's how you do it over the x-axis. Now if we're going to take a look at the y-axis, again, the y-axis, if this is the x-axis, this up here is the y-axis, and I'm going to highlight the axis. Again, it makes it a little bit easier. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, okay, how far away is M away from the y-axis? Well, if I take a close look, it's 1 away, and so I'm going to put my M prime right there. Okay, and then if I want to, I can erase that. I'm going to take a look at my L. It gets a little bit more confusing when it straddles, the figure straddles the axis. But my L is 1, 2, 3 away, so 1, 2, 3 away. This ends up being L prime, and again I'm going to erase that. And then I'm going to look at my N. N is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 in the other direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put my point, and then I'm going to erase that because I think it's just kind of confusing if I don't. And I'm going to label this N prime. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect those sides, and I'm going to shade in my figure, because that's my final answer. What's going to happen in the future is we're going to have not only 2 triangles or 2 figures on the example, there's going to be more than that. And then finally, I'm going to end with L prime. My ordered pair is going to be 3, 3. M prime is going to be -1, 5. And N prime is going to be -6, 1. And I'm looking at not only the ordered pair, but I'm going to be looking at those triangles, and the final one is going to be shaded. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Oh, this is a rule too, and it's something you can memorize, but I don't really like memorizing these rules. I don't think we need to. But what this says, that if I have an ordered pair like x, y, and I am reflecting it over the x-axis, the x stays the same and the y is the opposite. And so if I take a look at this example, you're going to notice when I compare L right here and L prime, the x stays the same and the y is the opposite. Okay, if I take a look at M, the x value stays the same, the y is the opposite. And same with the N, the x stays the same, the y is the opposite. When I rotate over the y-axis, the opposite is true. The x is going to be the opposite. Don't think of it as negative, think of it as the opposite. And y is going to stay the same. And so if I take a look at this example and I look at L is -3, 3, while my x is the opposite. It's going to be 3, 3, and so forth. All right, let's keep going. And again, you can memorize those rules if they help you, but you do not need to. The next one is y equals and x equals -2. With this, highlighting really helps. And so what we do first of all is let's take a look at y being 4. Okay, so I'm going to go and take a look at this. I'm going to go where my y is 4, and I'm going to put a dot there. And if I think about it and I look at where y is 4, I could put little dots all the way across. And actually, what would be better is I can take a highlighted line, and this is where y equals 4, right along there. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, so you might want to highlight it a couple of times just so you can see that that is where y equals 4. It's not going to go with the axis, it's going to go the opposite way. And all you do now is you go ahead and reflect over that line. So L is 1 away from that line, so I'm going to put L prime up here. M is 1 away, so I'm going to put my M prime here, and N is 1, 2, 3 away, and so N prime is going to be there. And so I'm going to go ahead and connect my points like this. I'm going to take and shade. I'm going to choose a different color because this is going to be my final picture then. You can kind of see that I shaded. I didn't want to go too dark so you can kind of still see it. And then again, what I'm going to do in my final answer is I'm going to list my ordered pairs. So L prime, you got to go according to x and y axis now. Don't look at that green line. And so L prime is 3, -3, 4. Okay. N prime is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then M prime, I'm going to list that new ordered pair, and so it's 1, 3. 1, 3. So the key is to reflect over that green line, but then when you list your ordered pairs, be really careful that you're looking at your axis. Another example would be a vertical line. It's where x is -2. And so I'm going to find where x is -2, which is right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a vertical line. So I'm going to draw my vertical line. I need to make sure that it's tall enough. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reflect. So my L prime is 1 on the other side. So I'm going to call that L prime. M is 3 to the right, so I'm going to go 3 to the left. I'm going to call that M prime. N is 6. Oh, it's 8. 1, 2. Here, I'll show you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so I'm going to go 8 the other direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Put my point there. I'm going to call that N prime. And then of course I'm going to erase those so I don't get too confused. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect my points like that. I'm going to do a final shade. I'm going to do it a little bit different color so it doesn't get too confusing. So I'm going to shade it in yellow. Okay, and so then I'm going to list L prime. And again, I'm looking at the X and Y axis. L prime, that ordered pair, is going to be -1, 3. M prime is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, -5, comma, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And N prime is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, -10, comma, 1. And those are the new ordered pairs. Okay, so what you do is kind of back to geometry or algebra. You find out where X is -2, put a point on it, draw your vertical line, and then go ahead and reflect it. And make sure you list your ordered pairs. Right? An oblique reflection, all that is like Y equals X, or there's another one too. When you look at the ordered pair, or when you look at the line Y equals X, all that means is that this line goes like that. It goes right through the origin like this, okay? And it's a special type of a line. So like if you take a really close look, I go, you know, X is 1, Y is 1, there's an ordered pair there. X is 2, Y is 2, there's an ordered pair. X is 3, Y is 3, there's the ordered pair. So that's kind of how they come up with that line, okay? So here's an example of what they did, and if you look at this closely, okay, I have B. B is 1 square away from this dotted line, and so B prime is 1 square away from the dotted line, okay? C, if you take a close look, it's 1, 2, 3 squares from that dotted line, and so I'm going to go 3 squares the opposite direction. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to do the ordered pair there. And then finally, if I look at A, I'm going to do 1 block, and so I'm going to go 1 block the other way. So this was the ordered pair, and here's that ordered pair. And so if I erase those lines, you're going to notice that I end up with the points for those figures. Okay, let's take a look at an example that looks like this. Okay, and I'm just going to do bare bones here to kind of get you an idea, and then when I do the other example, it'll be a little bit more detailed. But the main idea is let's say I call this A. Notice that this is 1, 2 away from that Y equals X. And so I'm going to go 2 in the opposite direction. I'm going to put a point there, and I'm going to call this A prime. Okay, and then I always go and try to erase that because you really don't need that. Okay, this I'm going to call, oops, this I'm going to call B. Notice that B is 1 away from that line, and so if I go the opposite direction, this would be B prime. Okay, then I take a look at this. We'll call this C, and if I go 1, 2, 3 away, I go 1, 2, 3 away. This ends up being my C prime. And then finally, I'm going to take a look at this point. I'm going to call this D. D is 1, 2 away, so 1, 2 away, and I end up with D prime. And so if I go ahead and put in my lines of my shape, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shade in my shape, and then don't forget to make sure that you do your ordered pairs. Okay? All right, let's go to the last one. This is another oblique shape, but this is where y equals negative x. You're going to notice that it's very similar to the other one, but it goes in the opposite direction. And again, when we take a close look at this, for an example, you know, t, if I look at that, that is 1, 2 away from that line. So 1, 2 away from the other line is t prime. You're going to notice that p is a little bit different because p itself is right on that line, so there's nothing to reflect, okay? Let's keep going then on to the next example. What you need to do is you need to look at that dotted line, and it makes it so much easier if you just concentrate on the dotted line. So if I look at A itself is like 1.5 away from that green line. And so if I do 1.5 away from that green line in the opposite direction, this ends up being our A prime. And again, I'm going to erase that because it just gets in the way. You could even do it really lightly with pencil and then erase it once you get your point. If I take a look at D, I could do B too. Why don't we go ahead and do it in order? So I'm going to look at B. B is 1, 2, 3 away. So 1, 2, 3 away. I'm going to put my point there. I'm going to call that B prime. And then I'm going to erase it. Okay. Then I'm going to look at my C. C is 1 away, and so in the opposite direction, I'm going to go C prime. And then if I take a look at D, D is 1 square, D prime is 1 square, and I'm going to call it D prime. Okay. Now what I need to do is I need to connect my ordered pairs. Now be careful when you connect these, because A connects to B, B connects to C, C connects to D. Make sure that you do it in the right order. Okay, otherwise your shape's going to look really funny. And then notice that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shade in my figure. And you can do this with color. You might want to do it in pencil, just because if you make a mistake, then you have to redo the whole thing over again. And then finally what we're going to do is we're going to do our ordered pairs. So my A prime is, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, negative 6, comma, 3. Okay, B prime is negative 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 2, so negative 4, comma, negative 2. C prime is going to give me positive 3, negative 1, 3, negative 1. And D is negative 2, 0. So D prime is negative 2, comma, 0. So again, when you do these and when I look at these, I not only want to see that shaded in figure, but I also want to see the ordered pairs. Now, if you do not have graph paper, you can always copy it off, or you could do it on your iPad too with graph paper that you can find online. You can draw your own, but be really careful with that because you have to have hash marks and it can make it really confusing. So I really encourage you to use graph paper or use, I believe this section has some of the problems already on graph paper for you. All you need to do is take what I have for you in Schoology and do it on your iPad and then print it off if needed. All right, that takes us through the obliques. These are some rules, and we went through number 1 and number 2 with the X and Y axes. Again, you don't really need to memorize these. I don't think you need to because you can do it without. But these first two we did. If it's reflected over the Y equals X, all you do is you take the X and the Y and you flip-flop them, and that gives you your new ordered pair. And then on number 4, if it's Y equals negative X, you flip them and then you change their sign. Okay, so all you do is you flip them. Again, you can memorize them. It's fine, but I find you don't need to. You really don't need to. The only way that would help you is maybe to check your answers. Again, in Schoology, if you look, there is, in worksheets and handouts, You have the homework, chapter 9 homework, and you're going to notice that there's a 9-3 book, 3 through 11 graphs. What I would do is I would take this and do it on your iPad. It makes it a little bit easier, and then you can print it off and hand it in if it's a flex learning day. Otherwise, you can just keep it on your iPad. Feel free to ask me questions if you have them. Otherwise, good luck with this assignment, and I will talk to you soon.